think most of you know me as the Bell Lady today. So aside from that, I wear multiple hats at Enterprise Knowledge. I am a partner at EK. I also oversee our strategy, design, implementation work in what we've been talking about today, as well as data strategy, and knowledge management implementation, and today, AI being a big part of that. So I thought I would take the opportunity to reflect on the 2 days that we had. I know most of you came in today, but this week started yesterday. I see we had some activities and familiar faces. And we did an activity asking, what is that one word that comes to mind when you think of a semantic layer? And this is what came out of yesterday's conversation. I want to pause and see if there's one that stands out to you or one that is missing that you were surprised not to see here, especially for those people who were here yesterday, if your perspective has changed, and for those of you who are new today. RDF? Okay. Coming from the LPG. Anything else? Transformation. Library of Information Science. Similarity. Great. Meaning. Yeah. So it's interesting to see, and this starts getting into the key thing that seems to be standing out that maybe not listed there and that you see on the top. There's a big shift that's happening right now, despite the fact that we are what I would think or would call the paradox of this abundance that we have of like technology, AI, data, all these pieces. The biggest shift that I have been hearing throughout these conversations, and if there are some typos here, I was typing all of these behind there, so ignore. But essentially, like this is what I've taken away from all the conversations that we've had over the day today and over the course of this week. So the first thing is, what's interesting to me is that shift from the understanding that traditional systems are meant to store and report. And the key shift that we've been talking about is how we need to focus on understanding and context. I think it was you, Henrik, who changed your title on LinkedIn as the context engineer, right? You were saying this morning. It's a big topic for many organizations. We talked about use cases yesterday quite a bit. That starting point, how do you get started? It feels like an undertaking. When Sarah opened the panel with our folks from HMG, she called out that last year we were here introducing the topic, and it was a journey here for them to be able to share that experience. And that was because they had a use case. And we talked about this yesterday. It always starts with that one question that you would want to answer that's going to move the needle for you. For NASA JPL, when we did work with them, it is, what kind of paint did we use for this rover in 1956? That was the starting question. For Inter-American Development Bank, it was, and I can share these because they have presented with us, so it's a public record. For them, it was about, we funded these projects in Latin America. We do them quite a bit. Why are we always starting from scratch every time we are about to fund a project? So if we're building a construction in Chile, then we should look for what we did in Venezuela, for instance, like these types of use cases. And then Joe more eloquently put it this at lunch today. He said, you're being stupid. The executive is stupid if they don't have a use case. So all of this to say, you need a starting place. You need to show, not tell. You need to start small and show value. So that's the biggest thing that's been standing out, especially when it comes to the challenge. I think it was said, how do you show value? How do you communicate with leadership? The second thing is, we've talked a lot about the different types and status and maturity of content and data and workflows. There's a shift to AI doesn't care. It could only take what it could consume as long as it could understand it. So that concept of knowledge assets, tacit knowledge included, how do you extract tacit knowledge, is another big topic that has been emerging. And then we talked a little bit about solutions and technology specifically, but more on how we are going towards this monolith, this, the Novo Nordisk said, we have it all. We have two of it for the fun of it, right? Like organizations have these legacy systems. How do you get your data out? How do you structure it? How do you put meaning to it? So this focus from, let's shift to explainability of our solutions. And we'll talk a little bit about that from like an architecture standpoint, but also learning from the past. Ben opened with that, the MCP example. Paco emphasized that as part of his conversation. There are so many research projects that had happened in the past that has led to where we are today from an experimentation standpoint. And I think the challenge now is there's so much noise on the market with a lot of products and vendors, and it's creating this analysis paralysis or decision paralysis for a lot of organizations on where to go. And then lastly, Don said, this is I think you put it as, this is a weird crowd, because usually you don't have this type of diversity in a room. It's either a data conference or a KM conference or an information library conference. Look around the room. We're breaking the silos with this conversation right here. So with that, I would say round of applause to everyone who made the effort to be in this room. Thank you. This is an emblem of like the testament to the biggest shift that's happening within the industry or within the space. The days of like these officers, like the chief data officer, which is now the chief data AI officer, it keeps changing, right? Like these officers, these knowledge, the CKOs, the chief knowledge officers, that is shifting completely. We talked about yesterday the many reorgs that we're seeing across organizations where the data team is now being tasked to handle unstructured information that they didn't know how to deal with in the past, which happens to be over 80% of the company's data and information. So now we're seeing this merger of we need to work together, and which is leading to a shift into operating models. We are seeing data teams becoming part of the knowledge and content teams, and the engineering teams merging with the data and AI teams. So there's a lot of change that's coming. So I think this is indicating that we are building the bridges as the layer in the conversation that we're having. So what does this mean when we're looking ahead? And this is, I think Zach opened with this in the beginning, that summarizes these are the core things that we are seeing as top of mind for many organizations, but also those that have been doing some of the foundational work over the past few years, how they're able to realize this. We talked about AI-ready knowledge assets. A lot of the projects and questions that we are grappling with and working with organizations right now are about what does it even mean to be AI-ready, defining that specifically, and how does it even work? How do you consume that information, and how do you get it ready for AI? So a big part of this is shifting the focus from data content to like knowledge assets. What are the pieces of the puzzle that will make AI work? The second thing is enabling technology. I'll come back to that. This is in the forum, Zach was talking about knowledge intelligence this morning. What does the new ecosystem look like for knowledge, data, content management systems, data analytics systems? What happens to dashboards? We're talking about, 10 years ago, it was exciting to get data products and dashboards and BI dashboards working. Today, we're already talking about, I want to talk to my data. It could be our phone. Maybe in the next 5 years, we're just going to be talking to our phone and getting results that way. So there's a big change that's happening on where we were and where we're going. And I'll talk a little bit about that. And then the operating model is this org shift roles that we were talking about. So I want to get back to what does this look like? We touched on this yesterday as part of the workshop. There's a lot on this slide, so I'll pause here and kind of walk you through this. So this is how we are envisioning the new ecosystem for all the things that we've been talking about. The first thing I would want to point to is the top layer, which is the consumption layer. it is no longer going to be humans that are going to need to consume information in a meaningful way. And the consequences are even more exacerbated if it's the wrong information. Because we humans have judgment to say, that doesn't look right. I don't know for AI, right? So this starts getting into the human in the loop. I know Sarah May was pushing, you were shut down earlier, but I'll come back to that. But at the end of the day, that's the reality is we're not just building for humans. We need a way to deliver the right meaningful information as AI consuming. And this is not far. We have organizations that, the IDB example that I gave, the graph work that we'd started in 2016 is now leveraging LLMs to build their agents. Just because they have been doing that foundational work, all the work in the beginning. So it is those organizations that are on the right are already there. That's what they're focusing on. The second layer I want to take your attention to is the knowledge asset sources layer. The biggest question that we're dealing with right now is, do you need this content management systems? Some data engineers will tell you you can vectorize everything, which is not true, because as knowledge, the content side of the world knows that there is a lot more that content management needs, the structure, the workflows, the alerts, all the pieces. So there's this danger of that in the middle of like, what do we do with these things with AI coming in? And then the last piece is what we've been talking about throughout the day, is the semantic layer. What's interesting from here is that there's a big focus in knowledge graphs now. There are multiple types of graphs that power the connection of semantics. And for different use cases, you may just need half of the semantic layer components, just metadata. But at the end of the day, it's metadata. It's the data about your data. It's not about physically bringing your data in the data lake. We went through that, but we still cannot answer the questions that we're looking for. And definitely AI is not going to be able to. So this middle piece is now, we're seeing it as part of the enterprise architecture for many organizations. And then on the left, AI being a partner to enabling and facilitating all of this. Semantic layer projects used to be an undertaking. Just in the past 3 years, there's a lot of helpers, AI helpers, that are getting us 70, 80% there. Dawn asked you to organize all this stuff. Now it could be at least pre-organized for you so you can make the decision of saying yes, no, and focus on alignment. And then on the right-hand side, observability. There's two ways to see that. One is explainability, like how is this working? The second part of this is cost and optimization. How much is this experimentation costing organizations? All those failed experiments spent a lot of money on these AI efforts, and they did not know it until the bill came around. So being able to see where you're using resources from an AI standpoint and being able to tweak that for optimization, there are a lot of products and vendors that are focusing on that right now, which I think is the right focus. And then what scares me the most is there's a pendulum that's swinging to the left about monolithic firms that are swallowing these smaller vendors that are now investing in this space. But what scares me the most is, imagine this middle layer, the 3 purple boxes, completely blacked out. That's what these vendors are putting forth. You would only interact at the top. You don't have a lot of control on the context and the meaning and the relationship that needs to be tailored for your organization in the middle. So that's a shift that I would ask for you to watch for. If you are not able to explain what's going on in the middle, then that's a big risk for your organization. If that firm goes away, or that vendor, that's a vendor lock, which goes completely away from the standards and the flexibility and interoperability focused on your data that we've been talking about. And then in closing, I just want to give you a sense for like a vision of where we are seeing this AI-enabled organizations with that architecture as the backdrop. And it's not just technology, and this is the operating model that we've been talking about. There's the people and culture. We've talked about how roles are evolving. I think 5 years from now, maybe even 3, I don't think we're going to have these like data KM teams. It's just going to be an ecosystem of like AI working with people, like that kind of collaboration together. Knowledge assets, we've talked about that. The other piece is around the shift from technology to data, or knowledge assets specifically, because it's just an enabler now. It's always been, but even more so now. That's a key point that I would hit home. And then lastly, I know we're running out of time. We've been talking about a lot about semantic layers, but I want to leave you with this thought. It's not just a layer, really. It is a window. It is a lens into your organization. You can bring in an LLM from the streets. It may work. The results may vary. But if you want something that's explainable and reliable and consistent and complete with your information, you need to have your semantics incorporated, your world, into AI. OK, with that, I know it's wine time. So I prompted Gemini to generate an image for, what do you think the prompt is for this? Or what do you see, actually? Let's go on. So the prompt was generate an image of a European city that is convenient and easy to get to for a conference. And it came up with something that looks like, I think, Munich combined with Prague. And then it says like a convenience store somewhere over there. It was, like just verbatim, it took it. So needless to say, it needs some work. AI is not going to take our jobs yet. So that said, this is what this is. Last year, we did this, and this is how we ended up in Copenhagen. So we're not going to do this here. We're going to go down to the cellar. But there are Post-its in front of you. Grab one, maybe or two, and give us a response. Where should the next semantic layer symposium be? With the prompt included. Remember my prompt. Convenient and easy to get to. And let's continue the conversation downstairs in the cellar. Thank you.